Greetings, ladies and mental gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Warning Shot, written by Armed Lad. So, you think this is a bluff? Is that what you say? You're wrong. Completely wrong. So utterly wrong that to even have an idea of how wrong you are would be beyond your comprehension. It would be like teaching a single-celled organism differential calculus. No, it wouldn't, because with enough of them, you could bioengineer the little things into an organic computer. No, don't look at me like that. Let me explain to you just how wrong you are. Yes, this is a story, what? You expected me to hold your pincer and point out every little detail like you are a newborn hatchling. Fine. Here we go. Way back when, there was this mid-sized regional power on the Orion arm. Yes, it was the Terrans. So basically, after breaking out of their home system, the Terrans found themselves to be in a rather lucky position. There was an abnormally high amount of cosmic radiation that saturated the zone, more than what any significant nearby species could handle, meaning that the surrounding region was rather devoid of sapient life. Combining that with being in a naturally resource-rich region of the Orion arm, the Terrans went interstellar with the birthright that other species could only dream of. Sure, there were several probes and expeditions into the region, but those fizzled out after the Pheno-Adradian Wars started in earnest. While the rest of the nearby galaxy was busy tearing itself apart, the Terrans expanded and settled their nearby systems. Their interstellar civil wars, rather than stunting their growth, ironically, helped them greatly in the long run, allowing the Terrans to teach themselves how to fight in an interstellar environment. Once the Pheno-Aradian Wars settled down, the neighboring powers to Terra decided it was time again to take a look at the region and sent out small teams to recover their abandoned outposts. Instead of finding them sitting somewhere in orbit of a star, they made first contact with Terra. The Terrans had found the outposts, and rather than attempting to first contact during the wars, figured it would be best to sit this one out and reverse engineer whatever they could. Plus, with the outposts belonging to multiple different species, they weren't limited to the tech of one power, and generally had a lot more options than most uplifted species. Hold on, I'm not done. This part is relevant to the story. Listen, we will get there when we get there. Okay, fine. Since you're so insistent, this is the relevant part. So, after the Hylian War and the opening of Kelly's Passage, the Terrans and the larger Zytarians found themselves with a bunch of systems to claim between them and a lot of disputed territory. Naturally, border skirmishes erupted. Considering their recent victory against the nascent Hylians, the Zytarians were feeling rather bold and confident. Their empire was an economic boon, and their military was large enough to render themselves a hegemon of the Orion arm. Plus, they had zealously guarded and painstakingly developed stockpile of around 40 relativistic weapons, of which 30 were planet busters. By contrast, the Grand Alliance of the Core, a galactic hyperpower, held 250. Relativistic weapons are ludicrously expensive to build and an engineering nightmare, so this was pretty impressive. Terra, meanwhile, was estimated to only have a few prototypes, with at most 5 weapons capable of being deployed. So, one thing leads to another, and a high-intensity war breaks out over control of the disputed systems. Despite a non-insignificant qualitative edge in Terran military, the sheer size of the Zytarian Empire meant that the Terrans were gradually pushed back. There was an unspoken gentleman's agreement to keep the fighting limited to the disputed systems. Naturally, the Zytarians wanted more than what those systems offered. When the war started, the Terrans sent a warning to the Zytarian military, basically stating not to advance into the core Terran space. Otherwise, there would be severe consequences. You can probably guess by now that the Zytarians believed it was a bluff. After all, that estimate of 5 planetbusters was sorely lacking in credibility, with even Terran scientists supposedly wishing that they had even one working weapon. With that off the table, the worst that could happen didn't seem all that bad. Chemical and biological weapons would be too extreme even for the Terrans, so it was doubtful that anything would truly be that bad. Some believe that a few outlying Zytarian worlds would be hit with 1 gigaton sunflower mining charges jacketed in cobalt or enhanced radioactive. What? Did I say something wrong? Yes, mining charges. To crack open asteroids and break them into smaller chunks. Look, they don't use them anymore after some galactic congressional representative's personal yacht got smacked by a continent-sized piece of debris when she ignored repeated warnings and got too close to the detonation. I don't know. It's a Galcon rep. You think they're smart? Anyways, even a large salted bomb would only irradiate an area, albeit a large one, for at most a centicycle. Besides, with Terran's liberal use of nukes in ground and space combat, everyone was kind of desensitized to them. Yes, I know that causes a lot of radiation. Do you think they did? It caused the Terrans and radiation damage, and then medicine can easily fix it. Plus, the Zytarians were also fairly radiation resistant. Not as much as the Terrans, but still. All right, can I finish this thing or not? Fine. Well, long story short, the Zytarians went ahead and invaded a system in Terra's core territory. All was going well until the disputed world the Zytarians had been using as a staging area and logistics hub blew up. Gone. Hit by a planet buster. Now the Zytarian public, they were freaking out. Not a lot of citizens thought that the Terrans had relativistic weapons, and that if they did, they wouldn't use them. Plus, last time they were used in combat was the Pheno-Iradian Wars, which caused the disintegration of both empires. But Zytarian High Command, they were rather calm about the whole affair. Yes, they lost a major military world, and their invasion was going to be a lot harder than anticipated. But at the end of the day, it was only one world, and the Terrans were now out of planet busters. At least, that was until they received a simple message from the Terran's executive containing only 5 words. This is your final warning. Then they started to freak out, because throughout the war they had received odd but simple messages from the Terrans. They were just the names of the core Zytarian planets and the population. High Command didn't get one for every planet, just a few dozen of the most populated. But when they got the final message, everything made sense. When the Terrans destroyed their planet, that wasn't the severe consequences they spoke of. No, that was a warning shot. And those planets that High Command was shown, those would be the targets. Pretty much insanity. The offensive halted and the fighting ceased, under threat of losing nearly half the Zytarian population and the heart of their empire. The Zytarians withdrew back to the border established by the original Terran claim, giving up their claims in turn. Up until that point, very few have used planet busters, and even fewer have used them for anything other than looking nice at a parade. Planet busters are the most extreme weapon a species could use. Even the most aggressive and imperialistic of species balk at the thought of using them. Planets are valuable, and nobody likes hurting them. So, when the Terrans used them not as a last resort, but as a warning, you can see why that was a big deal. It was, then, that the true size of the Terran relativistic arsenal was revealed. Utilizing a revolutionary technology that until then had been kept secret, the Terrans had built up a stockpile of 50 weapons, of which 35 were planet busters and 50 of which were ready to be launched. Suffice to say, a lot of species started hearing Terra's voice more loudly after that moment. To be fair, looking back, it still seems far-fetched that the Terrans really weren't bluffing. Coming up with a revolutionary technology to build 50 relativistic weapons is rather convenient. But like I said, nobody wanted to call their bluff. So my dear stupid friend, when a Terran gives you their final warning, just listen. Oh, okay, so maybe one being able to fold you like a pretzel. It is a bit far-fetched, but being able to punch a hole clean through your carapace very much is. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, Lord Azrakal, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Drugzoon WRE, and Blueberry Cat. Thank you very much for the support. It is super appreciated.